Anyone could tell from the name alone what kind of game Max Payne is. A title that inspires action-thrilled adrenaline-pumping chaos with one man running through hell to burst out of a window in slow motion. Aside from that cheesy smirk and eyebrow raise, this is what the 2001 game was known for. But there's more to it than that, and the pain has only just begun. Combat in this game isn't what I expected it to be. I had anticipated it to be something like Halo. I thought the aiming would be pinpoint accurate even as you stray from side to side dodging bullets. Where you aim is where your shots will land, but I was wrong. Most weapons will spray the screen, occasionally landing where you intended. Standing still seems to help most of the time, but that's not really something you're going to want to do. Even on the difficulty the game starts you with, it only takes a few shots for you to die, so you gotta keep moving and use bullet time as much as you can. Bullet time slows down time. You can use it while standing still, but if you move while using it, it'll make you dive. Using it while standing still probably would have been better for me to use in some situations, but I rarely ever did. Why do that when I can dive like a badass? But getting up was probably the result of most of my deaths. Bullet time aside, that's about all there is to unique gameplay mechanics. You have a pretty large arsenal of weapons at your disposal, but if you're like me and prefer to use more accurate weapons, you'll mainly be using the pistols, the sniper, and the Colt carbine, my beloved. Guns like the shotguns or the SMGs had too much spray for me to reliably want to use them. Lastly, I gotta touch on the healing. Throughout the levels you'll find painkillers that you keep on you and use them whenever you want, but I'm only mentioning them because it'll flash the screen with white every time you take one, so I just want to let you know what that was in case that shows up in the recording. The cutscenes are styled like a comic book, seemingly with a mix of in-game and live-action screenshots of its characters. This was also something I wasn't anticipating but thought it really fit with the game's over-the-top neo-noir writing. It reminded me of something, but I still can't quite put my finger on it. But you know what I'm talking about. If you're like me and don't watch a lot of movies or TV shows, then you might see a parody of this genre more than the genre itself. I've always found that endearing though.
I've been suspended 1 time, retired 2 times, and kicked off the force 3 times. I'm getting too old for this. But something always drags you back.
We'll also see that someone at Remedy, almost definitely Sam Lake, really likes main character narrations.
My Beretta stirred nervously under my coat, but the train doors had already shut behind me, and I was in for the ride.
Regardless, this game doesn't mind getting very real when it needs to be. Before we get into spoilers, it's worth mentioning that if you've liked what I've said so far and haven't played the game for yourself, Max Payne 1 and 2 are relatively cheap on Steam. They're both pretty short and are well worth the asking price. You can also get Max Payne 3, but since this video will be focusing on Remedy Entertainment, and Max Payne 3 was developed by Rockstar Games, I won't be covering that one just yet. Another time. But if you do stop this video to play those games, you owe me by coming back. Capiche? I also don't want this video to be too long, so I won't be going over every level or story beat, and will skip around where I think necessary. Spoilers moving forward. Any levity you may have had going into this game gets stomped on in the first level. Max, a New York policeman, returns home to his wife Michelle and baby being murdered by people dressed like their mental patients high on a drug called Valkyr.
Something ugly had been tattooed on the wall, a map of things to come. It was a poison syringe, a magic tag full of diabolical meanings.
By the time you kill him though, it's too late. 3 years pass and Max transfers to the DEA and goes undercover within a crime family that controls the trafficking of Valkyr. After you go on a killing spree starting with the bank robbers, you're going to be making your way through the entire criminal underworld. You don't really have a choice in the matter either, since they decided to frame you for the murder of another policeman and old friend, Alex. More gas for the fire. The levels will take you all throughout New York and things are borderline apocalyptic. It's always in the dead of night and you hardly ever see a face not hopped up on drugs or a wall that isn't plastered with graffiti and pink flamingos. Your crusade will take you to a club called Ragnarok. It's worth noting how much the game's writer, Sam Lake, loves Norse mythology. There are tons of references and this isn't the last we'll see. If you happen to be well accustomed to Norse mythology and also happen to be an alcoholic, then maybe you can take a shot whenever you see a reference or something. I'll be damned if you make it through this video though. Once you get to the backstage of the nightclub to find and kill Lupino, you find his scattered satanic seance.
Jack Lupino was crazy, all right.
Mythic wolves, let loose to devour the sun and the moon. Lupino is the wolf. I'm Mr. Beast, the big bad Fenris wolf. I'm the end of the world man, wearing the flesh of fallen angels.
It's hard to believe this man has any goons at all with just how insane he is, but anything for a paycheck, I guess. Following that, you'll find him just beyond the curtain.
I had known there'd have to be a catch in it somewhere, and this one was the Empire State Building of catches. Lupino was pumped up and dying to go 15 rounds with a mutant alligator. And then he started this spooky monkey talk, straight from a bad dream. Mine.
I have tasted the flesh of fallen angels. I've tasted the devil's green blood. It runs in my veins. I've seen beyond a world of skin, the architecture of blood and bow and arrow. Death is coming! She is coming, and hell follows with her. This is the twilight winter. I am ready to be her son. Her time is now, and all who stand in her way must die!
Once he's dealt with, a femme fatale will sneak up on Max.
When Lupino finally went down, I wanted to make real sure he'd stay that way. V was a bad monster. Turned them into friggin' zombie demons from outer space.
I think he's dead already.
Huh? And that's when it happened.
But dead or not, you've got the wrong guy.
In stepped this knockout femme fatale holding a gun to my face. I returned the favor.
Max recognizes her and mistakes her for Lisa Punchinello, the wife of Angela Punchinello, a mob boss. Turns out that's just her twin sister. This is Mona Sachs. She explains that Angela was the man responsible for the death of Max's old buddy Alex and his framing.
This one's mine. I hate the guts of that sadistic wife-beater. Why not pool our bullets for this one?
I thought you'd never ask. My finger was starting to twitch.
How do you like your whiskey?
I'm easy, as long as you don't try to slip me a Mickey.
You're a real angel, Max.
It was good stuff. Tasted sweet as honey going down.
Nothing personal. Can't risk you going berserk and getting Lisa killed.
The nightmare was always the same. Violent shapes moving in darkness, old and ugly. The killer's mad laughter was a riddle filled with wicked innuendo. Somewhere, the baby was crying.
The drug-induced nightmare makes you run through a labyrinth of your own home, tormenting Max each step of the way. He finds Michelle's diary on a desk.
Michelle was working part-time in the district attorney's office. Her diary was open on today's entry, her handwriting all pretty curves.
An army dossier found its way to my desk yesterday. Valhalla? Isn't that a Norse myth? Something about Vikings? I tried to tell Max about it, but he was busy, that cute frown on his brow. Guess it's nothing, just a mix-up at the courier service.
From now on, I would always find time for her. It was a hollow promise. Too little, too late.
A piece of the puzzle. As you walk into the bedroom, you see Max supposedly shooting his wife. Does that mean Max is the one that really killed his family? Well, almost definitely no. Given what we know so far, the strongest piece of evidence against this is the fact that he remained a policeman and even got promoted to the DEA. So assuming that the police entered the home following the murder of Max's family, the first thing they'd see are the bodies of the people who broke in. If Max did kill his family, then why are there a bunch of drugged out corpses there? So, okay, he didn't do it, but why are we still seeing this vision? Well, it's likely just a metaphor. Max just said that after reading Michelle's diary, that he regretted not hearing her out, because if he did, then maybe he could have stopped her murder from taking place. Therefore, he feels responsible for the death of his family. Max wakes up to being strapped in a chair at the mercy of Frankie Niagara.
Niagara, as in you cry a lot? He had a baseball bat and I was tied to a chair. Pissing him off was the smart thing to do.
Nothing wrong with a little laugh now and then. Take me, for example. I love to watch cartoons. Cartoon violence is a fascinating thing. Let's take a break. I need to take a leak and maybe grab a cold one at the bar. Don't worry. I'll be back to finish this off. And then, it's checkout time.
Everyone makes mistakes. Mine hadn't been to crack jokes about the goon with the bat. He'd have cracked my skull regardless. It hadn't even been to trust a girl with a gun. I had blindly gone after the first bad guy on my hit list when I should have been aiming further up the ladder, at the head of the Punchinello family. I couldn't bring myself to be pissed at Mona. Guess I had a soft spot for her pretty face. But when somebody decides to play baseball with your head, you tend to get sore.
On your way to find Frankie, you learn that Mona likely got captured.
Just forget about it. Just forget about it. Hey, just forget about it. That crazy witch, you should have heard her. She was a real scream when the boys caught her trying to cap the Don. Oh, that's freaking bad. To the trio? That's even worse than what Frankie's doing to that poor bastard downstairs. She's gonna take a long time to die.
Once the dude that likes Captain Baseball Bat Boy is dead, you leave the hotel in a car when suddenly you're pulled over by Vladimir.
Vladimir was back.
Bang. You're dead, Max Payne.
I might have laughed if I remembered how.
He proposes a plan to steal back a cargo ship full of weapons that were originally meant to go to him, but now are going to Angelo. So now your objective is to steal some weapons.
We'll drop you off at the Punchinello Manor.
Sounds good to me.
When this is over, look me up. I could use a professional like you.
I'll keep that in mind.
Once you get your hands on some firepower, Colt Commando my beloved, you eventually end up at Angelo's manor, where it's likely that Mona left a back door open for Max. Seems she was able to free herself from whatever cell she was in. In an upstairs bedroom lies her twin sister.
I couldn't tell whether it was Mona or her sister. The body was a mess. The sick bastard had really gotten a kick out of it. Seeing her lying there got me thinking about another woman's body on another bed. Got me thinking about a fallen cradle.
After cutting through the mansion, Angelo begs for his life.
He was trying to buy more sand for his hourglass. I wasn't selling any.
No, I told him nothing.
Max is surrounded by a bunch of men in black with a lady in a suit behind them all, ready to give you another dose of the green stuff in order to kill Max.
Sooner or later, it was going to catch up with you.
Mr. Payne, it's time to show you the benefits of my brew. Be a good boy now.
You'd find that Lady Luck was really a hooker. You were fresh out of cash.
Gentlemen, we're done here. Take me to Cold Steel.
She had just given me an OD of Valkyr. I could feel green fire eating my brains. They turned to steam. They did a fade on me. I'd never had a chance. The witch had got me just as sure as if she put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. The shadows rushed me, bruised mugshot faces hungry for revenge. They knew my weak spots and closed in for the kill. The floor turned into a vortex of green blood. I fell.
Something sticks out of this nightmare, though. Another note on another desk.
There was something disturbingly familiar about the letter before me. The handwriting was all pretty curves.
You're in a graphic novel.
The truth split my skull open, a glaring green light washing the lies away. All of my past was just fragmented still shots, words hanging in the air like balloons. I was in a graphic novel. Funny as hell. It was the most horrible thing I could think of.
Now, I thought of one thing that could maybe explain this. It could be that this is how Max Payne pictures a lot of things in his mind. Maybe he grew up reading a lot of graphic novels as a kid and adopted that format to keep up with recalling certain events. Sort of like how the player character from Disco Elysium has his own personification for specific sensations and thoughts.
An interesting little clue. Let's see where this goes. Clues have a way of magically connecting to other clues down the road. Perhaps you should break into apartments more often.
He then answers the phone to his own voice narrating something essentially incomprehensible. Max gone mad.
Bartender is shiny stuff and dreams are made of stooped necromancers. He sings like a banana wrist, having strayed too close to the constellations on their shaved skulls. It was a bad line in a prank call. Someone spouting insane babble. I couldn't make sense of it. But I had an overwhelming sense of deja vu. The caller's voice sounded oddly familiar.
You leave and enter the room again. Another desk, another letter, another phone. Another short-lived theory torched.
There was something disturbingly familiar about the letter before me. The handwriting was all pretty curves.
You're in a computer game, Max.
The truth was a burning green crack through my brain, weapon statistics hanging in the air, glimpsed out of the corner of my eye, endless repetition of the act of shooting, time slowing down to show off my moves. the paranoid feel of someone controlling my every step. I was in a computer game. Funny as hell, it was the most horrible thing I could think of.
It's possible that this is also how he perceives the world, but I don't really think that's what the writer is going for anymore. So in my mind, that leaves us with two options. This could either be a joke and the writers are going, he's tripping so hard that he sees the truth of the world, that kind of thing, which sort of makes sense. Or the writers put this in deliberately to break the fourth wall, making it a metafictional story. But if that was the case, then where the hell could the story go from here? He answers the phone to his own voice telling him to snap out of it.
The drug, snap out of it. Try to remember.
It was a bad line in a prank call, someone spouting insane babble. I couldn't make sense of it. But I had an overwhelming sense of deja vu, and the caller's voice sounded oddly familiar.
Now that I think about it, this reminds me of something. The pink flamingo.
Only, it's not me talking to the pink flamingo, but someone who looks the part down to the finest detail, except that he's evil. I'm hiding in the shadows, watching it all unfold. The flamingo speaks. He can speak here. It says,
"Mirrors are more fun than television."
That's, mirrors are more fun than television. Somehow I know this, just don't ask me how. And I, not me, but my double, nods and smirks at this like it was the funniest thing in the world. And then something goes wrong, and suddenly they know I'm there, hiding behind them, and they both turn to look at me with cold eyes. And the flamingo speaks again. I have no idea what that means. And that's when I always wake up to my own scream in that brightly lit white hospital room, strapped to my bed.
The nightmare leads you on this trail of blood, which I fell off more than I'd like to admit, which ends at an overturned cradle. Upon touching it, you're teleported to the bedroom where your wife died, and Max from 3 years ago blaming you for the murder of his family.
Max, something happened at the office today. A strange memo. Something about Vikings.
Honey, I gotta run. You can tell me all about it this evening.
Have a nice day, darling.
The bullet holes were rubies on her chest, blood glowing on her ivory skin. She was so beautiful. The killer was smiling.
The flesh of fallen angels.
The hysteria continues just before Max slowly crawls his way back to consciousness. Once he's ready to move, he sets out to Cold Steel to follow the crazy witch.
I had the drop on the mystery witch. She thought I was dead. I was on her blind side. I was going in.
As you work your way through the industrial site, you'll find letters that allude to something much bigger. Lucky for Max, there's an elevator that leads down to what seems like a government facility, being rigged to blow. One of the first things Max notices is an insignia on the floor.
There was an old army bunker under the steel mill. I knew the military plaque on the floor. I had seen 1,000 variations of the insignia on crumbling brick walls everywhere in the city. The sword replaced by a syringe. Project Valhalla, V for Valkyr, V for Valhalla. All of a sudden it read like a crackpot conspiracy theory.
Before he can get more answers, he reaches a door that needs a pin number in order to progress.
The chemist had been using the workstation when he died. The half-life of the lab rat had ended online, his password blinking on the screen. 665. Neighbor of the beast.
Neighbor of the beast. After getting past a few more obstacles, he'll find a computer with a plethora of answers.
Top secret. Project Valhalla. U.S. Army. Yggdrasil Network. Valhalla. The otherworldly place in Norse mythology where the bravest heroes spent their afterlife feasting and fighting forever. Their wounds miraculously healed night after night. Valkyr. The maidens who chose the most courageous Viking warriors and carried them to Valhalla. 1991. The research objective is to create a chemical substance to enhance the stamina and morale of infantry troops. 1995. Results unsatisfactory. Project cancelled.
Someone had decided to continue the sick experiment unauthorized.
Project compromised. Data leak. Fix the damage by any means necessary. Security clearance red. Authorized by the project lead. Field test. Double the dosage for all the remaining test subjects. Observe and record the subject's behavior in an urban setting.
The drop-off point was my old address in New Jersey. The file dated 3 years ago. Just when you thought you had reached the deepest depths of horror, it suddenly got worse. How to turn off that small voice inside your head that started to whisper that you should be glad that now, if not before, your revenge was justifiable on any conceivable moral scale. That small voice proved, beyond any doubt, that I was damned.
Answers in tow, Max escapes the facility. What Max says during this cutscene is really worth noting.
You piece together a jigsaw and the final picture is you finishing that same puzzle. A mad, green-eyed killer standing behind you. An urban legend come true. The Project Valhalla test subjects had been the mad junkies who had murdered my loved ones. The rest was simple body count math. It all pointed to her. Ms. Valkyr. I felt thin as death. I've been living on an endless supply of week-old donuts. They were fuel for this crazy furnace inside my head. I couldn't remember when I had last seen the sun. I was on a permanent graveyard shift. When the darkness fell, New York City became something else, any old Sinatra song notwithstanding. Bad things happened in the night, on the streets of that other city, Noir York City.
While he rests at a diner, he gets a call from one of his colleagues from the DEA called BB. A meeting is arranged when Max is able to tell that BB is most likely a crooked cop who also helped arrange Alex's murder. Once that loose end is wrapped up with, he gets another call, this time from Alfred Woden. One-Eyed Woden introduces Max to the Inner Circle. I guess you could say that the Inner Circle is just the Illuminati, but a little more official. He explains that the crazy witch you're after is Nicole Horn. She was working on Project Valhalla, and when funding was cut, she kept going. She's the president of the Acer Corporation, so she already has all the funding she would need.
Some have gone as far as to say that Acer Corporation is about to become an even bigger monopoly than Microsoft ever was.
So, Woden asks you to take her out. As a reward, they'll clear Max's name of all wrongdoings. Before Max even gets a chance to make a snide remark, the room is ambushed and Max leaps out of a window. Max re-enters the building, taking out Nicole's mercs. He then finds a security room that only raises more questions.
On screen, the so-called corpse of Alfred Woden stood up, miraculously waking from his dirt nap, looking smug among his dead pals. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I didn't know how he'd pulled it off, but it was a pretty slick way to get out of all his promises. Most of what he had said fit too well to be a load of crap.
So, did he die and he was somehow reanimated, or did he just play dead and wait for everyone to leave the room? After finding a blueprint of Acer Corp HQ with Woden's highlighted weaknesses, Max leaves to make his way there. Johnny Silverhand makes his way up the HQ when suddenly he bumps into Mona again. Just before they're about to team up again, they're attacked and Mona takes a bullet to the skull. Once Max clears out the room, however, he reopens the elevator to find Mona's body missing. Maybe the HQ is a really good janitor running around? Regardless, Nicole Horn is one short stop away. She runs to the rooftop and climbs aboard a helicopter. With no way to get to her, you shoot out the cables holding an antenna on the top of the tower and have it fall onto the chopper. With Nicole finally dead, Max lays down his weapons and gives himself over to the police. Max is shoved into a police car surrounded by a crowd of people, with One-Eyed Woden standing among them.
Woden was there in the crowd, standing by the sidelines. It wouldn't be over till the man with the patch would say so. He'd say the right words. I knew he would. He'd better. Woden grinned smugly. It was the grin of a winner. That made two of us.
And just like that, credits roll. As cheesy as it is, that grin was on my face now too. I really enjoyed this game no matter how many times I was ambushed or confused. Max Payne appealed to the tried and true formula of gameplay broken up with story segments that I love so much, and maybe that's why it was able to obtain such a strong reputation, which for its time was absolutely deserved. However, there are a few questions remaining. So, Max being told he was in a video game really had nothing to do with the plot at all? Where did Mona's body go? Did Woden come back from the dead? What was the deal with the pink flamingo? Well, Max Payne has only started his journey through the night. The pain has only just begun. More will follow.
If I was a bloodsucker, I'd move to the North Pole. Winter's one long night. Yeah, and what would you eat? Suck blood from penguins?